The opinions expressed by tonight's guest do not represent the opinions or position of Spaced Out Radio, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with SOR Media. Listener discretion is advised.
Oh man, there's got to be something to listen to on this dial.
This message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere. It is speculated that these objects are of extraterrestrial origin. The broadcast will quiet at this time for your safety.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays as we light the void with Joe Root on Spaced Out Radio.
Told all the lies to myself while sleepwalking through it all.
You can follow Joe on Twitter at Lighting the Void, on Facebook at Lighting the Void, and you can call into tonight's show at 501-777-5631. You can also follow Joe at spacedoutradio.com.
We're sorry. Your call cannot be completed as done.
Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Why don't you talk into the microphone? I got a backup mic right here. Check 1, 2. Testing, testing. Yeah, they both working, and guess what? They don't like no feedback. What's up?
Now, let's fire the show up and light the void on Spaced Out Saturdays with your host, Joe Root.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Saturday tonight. I am your humble host, Joe Root, and it's good to have you with us. It's great to be here. Thanks for joining us wherever you're listening across the World Wide Web on this lovely, cold and wet down here in the natural state, February 10th, Saturday night on into the 11th. Thank you all for joining us wherever you're listening from across the web or on our affiliate stations. Speaking of our affiliate stations, let's welcome in everyone listening on our affiliates. WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of the Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We're also live on spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, and the Fringe FM. Now, we rock out every night with Ron Bumblefoot Thal, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official sound of SOR. Also, you can check us out on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. And you can follow me on Twitter as well at Lighting the Void. Subscribe to the new YouTube channel. It's really easy. It's just Spaced Out Radio. And you can listen to us on iHeartRadio in the USA. You can listen to us on TuneIn. Download our shows from iTunes. And of course, the website is spacedoutradio.com. And if you go to patreon.com for as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of Spaced Out Radio. Now, if you want to take part in the show, just sign into one of our chat rooms on Spreaker or on the UPRN chat room or on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club. If you're on Twitter, just go to hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and I'll get to your questions in there as well. The call-in number when the phone lines open up is 501-777-5631, 501-777-5631. And if you head over to the website for just $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. And as of right now, you can go to the Spaced Out Radio store, pick up a T-shirt poster or SOR sticker. We also have the Encounter online that deals with everything paranormal. You can check out the latest blog post there as well. And if you've had an experience you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers and Leslie Mitchell-Clark's Contact TV also has some great viewing there as well. And don't forget, if you go to GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night for the studio upgrades, you can go there and just, if you can donate to us, that'd be great. And it's going to help us upgrade the studio so we can get on more of those terrestrial stations that we're already in the works with. And any help from there would be much appreciated. And please share that link as well if you can. Now, tonight, we tackle the large question of who am I? And I'm a little bit under the weather, so I apologize if you hear me clearing my voice or hacking. I'm going to try to hit the cough button as much as possible, but I'm sure all of you can relate to that right now. But yeah, that's what we're going to talk tonight. This large question of who am I? Where do I come from? In this vast galaxy of the known universe, why am I here? Amelia Aeon Karris from knowtheself.com joins us to discuss this as we begin to remember our galactic nature and possibly discuss our heritage. Now, this is her first appearance on Spaced Out Saturday. It's a bit more long form than she's used to with me, like on Lighting the Void. So let's give her a big welcome. Now, let me tell you about Amelia real quick, if you don't know who she is. Amelia is a seer, a multidimensional guide, a sustainable lifestyle designer, author, and spiritual catalyst. She created Know the Self Mystery School for truth seekers to achieve self-mastery. Her healing abilities and clear vision were forged during a series of shamanic initiations over a 9-year period that honed her multi-sensory awareness and crystallized her gifts. Her extensive past life recall was noted in India, first placing her on national TV, and later addressing live audiences as many of 60,000 seekers. Now, over the last decade, through public speaking, teaching, and private counseling, she's helped thousands of people to liberate their minds, navigate expanding realities, and live out their divine destinies. Amelia specializes in assisting others personally on their path to awakening. Another cool thing, she also works with the moon cycles and loves to write about the phases of the moon in her newsletter on her moon blog at the site knowtheself.com. Now, you can check out her book, Synchronicity, Unlock Your Divine Destiny, which I have right here in my hand. I take it everywhere with me, no matter where I go, just in case I need it. And that book as well is at knowtheself.com or on Amazon. Amelia, it's awesome to have you here with us on Spaced Out Saturday. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Joe. It's so great to be here.
Yeah,
Hi, everyone else.
It's cool.
It's fun to see everyone in the speaker.
Yeah, it's cool. I didn't know. I knew when I asked you to come on here, because it's such a long show, that I thought you were going to hesitate a little bit, but you jumped at it. So I'm really glad you're here with us, hanging out this Saturday night.
Thanks. It's always good to chat with you, Joe. And I feel like we always kind of run out of time and there's so much more to talk about. So hopefully we won't bore anyone and we can have a lively discussion.
Oh, no, this stuff is not boring. I mean, that's the big questions that it's a philosophical thing, I guess, but it is a question, I believe, as you get older that we all start asking ourselves, what's this about? Who am I? Why are we here? I mean, I hate to be one of those woo-woo type people, but I do tend to think about those things a lot, and I catch myself on clear nights looking into the stars as much as possible. And it seems like the older I get and the faster that time moves, it's a question that just nags constantly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. At least you're asking.
Well,
Some people never ask.
Do you think
they just
enough
go
of
about
us,
the life?
Do you think enough people we're not asking that question? I really ask this to everybody. I say, hey, are we all waking up? Are more people waking up? And everybody's like, oh yeah, absolutely. Lots of people are waking up. But I wonder sometimes if it's really just a perception thing, because I'm starting to do that myself. And so I'm only hanging around those type of people, like our listening audience and some of the people we have on the show. And maybe I just stepped out of the old world that I was in, and it's always been the same level. Could be wrong, though.
Well, it's awesome that you're surrounding yourself with people that are asking those bigger questions, but I find the majority of people never ask. They don't want to know. It sort of takes them down a rabbit hole that, will wake them up, but it's so challenging to what's been fed to us by, having a 9-to-5 job, watching TV, and passing out, waking up, and repeating every day. It doesn't really give people space to reflect and to really ask bigger questions. So for you, Joe, and everyone listening who's asking, like, this is the 1% of the population. I don't know what the actual percentage is, but I think it's quite rare.
Yeah, just I say that all the time. More people are waking up. It's an awakening thing, right? It's the age of Aquarius or whatever. But if I go back to the people that were in my life, my friends and family and the people I hung out with when I was in my early 20s or whatever, they're still not into this stuff. So maybe it's just a perception thing, mate. Like I said, maybe it's just because I'm hanging out, But that's another question, I guess, for another time. But yeah, so we're going to talk about remembering, and it's funny how we titled this the word remembering, right? It's usually just one word, but we really showed that remembering our galactic nature for a reason. And why do you feel right now that this is an important subject that we need to talk about now?
Well, it's kind of the subject of my life. I mean, I think it's just something I've always been doing since I was a child, wanting to remember, feeling like I was born with some sort of amnesia and trying to recall. But what I feel we're doing as a collective is putting ourselves back together and shaking off this spell that we've been under and these enslavement programs that have been holding us hostage. And in order to do that, we have to recapitulate our lives, like bring those pieces back, heal those deep, dark wounds, peer into the dark closets, go through the dark night, and remember who we are at a soul level. So our soul, the essence of our soul is very different than the personality of our human nature. And to uncover that, we have to do the work. And once you uncover that, you can be pretty surprised at who you are at a soul level, and you wake up to a multiverse that is so much grander than what we've been taught in history books or even in creation stories. And that's where we get, blown out and sort of, our mind can't really comprehend the nature of our soul. And so there's a complexity there. And I believe it's, part of the reason why we've been put under the spell is they think, the powers that be who designed the spell feel that we can't handle the truth or that much information, or we're being put to sleep so that we can stay under this spell instead of really activate our true soul's mission. And so my personal mission is to wake up all of these sleeping spiritual warriors to recall and put themselves back together and remember exactly why they came here and to fulfill their mission.
And this is one of the reasons why you created the mystery school, right?
Yeah, it is the reason for the mystery school, and to just really bring a place of training and a place where we can hone our self-mastery and help each other to put the pieces together. So as we start to awaken, it's a mad kaleidoscope of puzzle pieces. So imagine the most complex puzzle you can imagine, and that's what we're dealing with. And so there's a lot of pattern tracking, and every one of us holds different pieces. So when you're doing a puzzle and you dump it out, and some people start with the border, right? Like they do the outline and then they start dealing with the centerpieces. And some people are really good with like looking at colors and saying, oh, I'm going to do the sky of the puzzle, or, if it's a nature scene, they're like, oh, I'm going to do the trees. I'm going to collect all the puzzle pieces that look like tree bark. So each one of us has our part and our specialty and our gift. And I'm magnetizing those people to me that have the matching keys to the keys that I'm holding, so that we can fit them together and unlock this grand design.
You know, a lot of people say that we're in a trap, like the Earth is a trap, like this trap of consciousness, and it's a prison planet. And then others say, well, no, it's a place where we just grow our souls and our consciousness, like it has a reason. It's not just a trap. I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
I guess it's just from which perspective you're looking at it. I believe it's a training ground. I can speak from my own understanding of why I volunteered to come to Earth. And I knew that there was going to be a period of amnesia, and I would have to remember and put it together, which is much harder in this third density. So it's a training ground, but it needs certain souls have come here at this time to create these portals of awareness to lift up these programs of enslavement, this sleeping spell that's been placed around the Earth. It's like a net, and the Earth has been taken hostage, and we're here to put holes in that net and release it.
So you say you volunteered to come here, and you knew that you knew you were going to, I guess, have some memory loss and have to work your way back into that.
Yes.
That is something that I've always thought about. Like, I remember when I was a kid, my grandmother, she still shows me this video this day when I went to the zoo and I was 5 years old, and she was videotaping me, watch me looking at the screen, and I freaked out and I started screaming at everybody saying, "You left Joseph at the zoo, go get him," And I was Joseph, right? And they just laughed at me. But as I watched that video, I thought, maybe at that time I didn't know I was Joseph then. Like I just knew who Joseph was, or you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was very little. I'm talking like 2 or 3, actually.
Yeah, it could be disassociation or soul loss. I think that's generally when we're programmed to have a trauma and to start disassociating from ourselves, like broken pieces of ourself get dismembered. So it generally starts around 2, 3, 4. Before 4, there's the first trauma, and then there's multiple traumas at each sort of age ring every 3 years to ensure that you won't remember your soul essence.
Now, I don't know how much you remember of it, the recall, and that's what we're talking about now is the recall, right? So, is there a chance that we'll slip so far away that we'll never go back?
What do you mean?
Well, what I mean is, and this really kind of freaks me out when I think about it, because I'm into astral travel and Robert Monroe and all that, and in their third book they had this soul family that they traveled around with, and one of their souls wanted to go to Earth, and I think his name was either BB or something, I forget his name, and he got caught up in his lives in Earth, and they kept going back down there trying to get him to come back. And sometimes he would remember who he was, but he got so caught up in it that they kind of gave up on him.
Fragmented?
Yeah.
Like so caught up with the earthly life that he forgot his soul essence?
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he talked about how, this was while he was in his body, but he had actually came out of his body, remembered who he was, found a couple of his soul family, and they, one of them went into Earth just because he was curious about it. And he got so caught up that they tried to rescue him from Earth a couple of times, and it just didn't work. He was so caught up in it. He wanted to go back.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Well, I think there's a war happening between dark and light forces, and I think that souls get trapped. Light warriors come here and they get turned around.
So that's what I was asking. Is there, and I hate to even think of it because it's nightmarish almost, but is there a chance that like we could come here and really slip up and get caught and never be able to return,
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe you have to weigh out the risk, right? Like say, okay, I know that might happen, but this is still what I want to do.
Well, you have to know how to align to the pure light. So you can get lost in your journeys if you don't know how to find your inner compass. And that's what my whole mystery school is about, is tuning to your internal knowing. So when you know yourself, when you know how to listen to yourself, when you can trust yourself, when you know what your ethics and values and morals are, and you have your inner compass so strong, you'll be able to maneuver through all of the tests of darkness that you're going to have to go through. And for those who are here to do, really particular spiritual work, they might be challenged a little bit more. So some light workers, they're able to exist in a state of grace depending on their own samskaras and what they've come here to experience and lessons that they've come to learn on this mission. Others are going to be challenged to death again and again and again. And some of them don't make it. It's just like any war. Some soldiers don't return home. They're either captured by the enemy or killed or taken over or whatnot. And it's the same with our souls. So even though we might come from a certain allegiance originally, we can get lost on our missions and either forget who we are, but most likely just be seduced into another way or become traitors or whatever. We might decide to choose another path because we have free will and free choice. We can choose to go to the other side. And it's same with the dark. I mean, not all souls are from the light. Some souls walking amongst us are from dark energies, and they might choose to follow light and to jump onto the other side. That happens also. So it goes both ways.
Is it your opinion that, or I say your opinion, well, I'll just ask you, does everybody and everything return back to source or do
to their own source? Yes.
Okay. 'Cause I got this thing and it's a hang up and it's kind of, you could even call it a fear, because I was brought up in a Christian home, and I'm not talking about hell. What I'm specifically talking about is, and I haven't really discussed this with you, so I guess now would be the best time to ask, is what's called the second death. And the second death is the death of our, like our consciousness. We just totally forget who we are, and we never return, or our soul blinks out. And then others most of the people, except for a couple of people, tell me that, no, I mean, you're immortal. You may forget who you are and keep going back and forth all these lives, but eventually you're going to return to source. Well, there's this other thought out there, and a couple of guests I've talked to have told me about it, where no, there's actually what's called a second death, to where you lose lose your soul, where you just blank out. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I'm more leaning towards that version. I don't know about blanking out, but I think we can get lost on our path, and we can stray far from our original home. And I don't think that we all come from the same source. And so what source is can be different for different souls. And whether they return to their source or not, it's not always 100%. Of course, they're going to return. It really just depends on how they especially here in this dimension, it's how they're using their free will. And that's what's so special about the dimension we're in, is that we have free will and we can make choices that change our destiny.
Well, more specific, what I'm asking is, it's one thing if Joe Roop dies, right? If Joe Roop dies, that's fine. He dies, but that's not who he really is. That's not his higher self or you see what I mean? But what if...
I know. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. So say you die, but during this lifetime, you've made choices. So say Joe Roop is from a particular source of light, and he's come here to have a certain experience, and he has a mission, and he forgets his mission, and he decides to engage with darkness, and he sells his soul to darkness, and he follows darkness instead of the light. And then he has a physical death here.
Right.
He may not go back to his source because of the agreements he's made. So he might choose, change camps, so to speak.
But does that, dark or light, what I'm saying is, does that thing die?
Well, I don't think anything ever dies. I think it's a continuum. So you might choose to be with the dark camp, just to say the story, for a few lifetimes and keep returning to that place every time you die. And then one lifetime you might come here and have free will and correct your ways and realize that you're not actually from the dark, you're from the light, and you want to return home to your original source. Then you can choose to go home and recommit and go back.
Well, I ask you these deep questions for a reason, right? And here's the reason why. I talk to a lot of people, Amelia, but I got to be honest with you. I haven't talked to anyone that I've talked to others, and they've came back and told me how your school has changed their life for the better. I'm not saying other people that I've talked to haven't done great things for folks, because they have. But everybody I know that has had some kind of long contact with you, or went to your mystery school, or read your book, or implemented the teachings that you talk about, they have all told me that their life is almost totally different. They are so happy. They are driven. They know who they are. And so, you have to forgive me. I may hit you with some crazy questions every now and then, but I just feel like I got to get some of this stuff off my chest.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah,
well, I mean
it. That's wow. I'm speech is very emotional for me to hear that, but that's all I can wish for, I guess.
So this summer retreat you do every year, and I'm going to go to one of these things. I'm
really?
Yes.
Is that just here? Is everybody listening?
Yes. The Mount Shasta Summer Retreat. It's you call it the Conscious Camping Quest, right? Specifically,
rebirth and renewal.
Yeah, specifically this thing I've heard is really awesome. Can you tell us about what you do there a little bit?
Yeah, well, rebirth and renewal is designed to help people come back to refresh themselves, or to come back after some massive loss or big change. When we have a catastrophic loss, or a breakup, or a death in the family, or we're recovering from some traumatic illness, our lives change so radically, and the containers in which we live generally can't cope with that sort of change. I know people even who, give birth to a baby, and then they're supposed to go right back to work, but they're a different person, right? And there's no structures in our society to just have a time out and reflect and either celebrate or mourn the massive change that we go through. So my life has gone through a gazillion rebirth and renewal experiences. I've had to redesign my life again and again. So I've become quite an expert at it. And so I've designed this rebirth process that I guide people through to really reflect, to see the patterns in their life, to blast through any blocks or obstacles that are holding them from creating a life that they love. And last year and this year, I've been doing it out on the mountain. Instead of in an indoor workshop experience, I'm taking people out onto Mount Shasta, questing out in the woods, camping. Well, we're glamping, really. So we can.
What was that? What is that?
Glamping.
What is that?
Do you know that word? Glamping is like, when you say camping, people think that they have to backpack with very little stuff and they're going to be uncomfortable and sleeping on the hard earth. And so glamping is where you bring like your entire living room outside. So we have tents, like some people bring air mattresses, or I like to sleep on foam mattress and my own bedding. And I have this, beautiful tent with a see-through top so that I can see the stars at night and watch the sunrise and the sunset, and be comfortable. And we eat inside a screened canopy so people don't have to fight with the flies or whatever bugs might be out there. But it's a beautiful, beautiful experience, and we make it really comfortable. So there's a area where we sit and do our morning practices, and I do this healing modality to help people unwind the trauma that their body's storing, and to have instant recall and remember who they are and what they're here to do, and like really embody their soul. And then we spend some time in meditation and silence. We go on adventures, and just sit in the majesty of the Mount Shasta vortex, which is incredibly potent in itself. But we're doing all this rebirthing work, and so people leave very different. They get in touch with the earth, with themselves, with their natural cycles. They look at some of the patterns and get to review what just happened in their life. And they leave with a sense of community and a new structure and a new foundation to implement moving forward. So a lot of the people who've experienced the rebirth and renewal process actually continue to do it year after year, and they become like, really close friends, and they have an incredible experience together that's really profound.
That's awesome. And I don't want everybody to think that I have this fear and fascination with death, because I don't. All right. But I find that the out of body state, since I've had those experiences, has really like shifted my attention to things. And, I read William Buhlman's book, Higher Self Now, and he has an entire book about, and it's a great audio book about the transition. And I don't know how many people he's helped who've transitioned into that death phase with that book. And I guess maybe I listened to it when I shouldn't have, and it got me thinking about a lot of things. It was so fascinating, because he helps people go into their higher selves prior to their death. And it's an amazing hearing the testimonials about it. And that's William Buhlman, if anybody's interested in that. But I don't know. I just get this kickback a lot when I talk about those things, when I talk about, the out-of-body thing or the death thing or what happens after life, what happens after this. Why am I thinking about it so much? Well, it's irrational to think about that. Well, no, it's not. I mean, it's going to happen to us all, and it just happened to, a great mentor for all of us was John Anthony West, and Mr. Johnson also passed away. It seems like there's a lot of this going on right now, and this is that thing that always wakes me up and gets me looking at the stars again and thinking, okay, why am I here? And I've been laughed at by some friends for asking stuff like that. That's just totally irrational. You're never going to know, so don't ask.
Well, I think just to back up a little bit about death, for me, death was the gateway to my biggest awakening of my spiritual nature, by witnessing my father's death and being there with him when he crossed over was an extraordinary experience. Like, I literally watched his spirit go out the back of his head, and it looked like a jellyfish, and it flew up, and I was just in awe and wonder, like, this is incredible. I never had experienced anyone dying in front of me before. And as his jellyfish-like spirit went through the ceiling, these golden packages that were literally like presents wrapped in gold wrapping paper with gold ribbons. It was very specific. The two of them flew down from his jellyfish spirit through the ceiling and into my body. And my eyes forever changed. And from that moment forward, I could communicate with the dead. I could see the other side of the veil. And it was extremely entertaining and really, really trippy. And that year, 9 people in my life died, including my spiritual teacher and mentor, who died just 2 weeks after my dad. So it was before that time. So I was 30 at that time, and I had never thought about death. I thought, okay, we live forever. I believed in past lives because I had multiple past life experiences at that time, but I had never really contemplated, like, where is the soul going exactly? And that just opened a whole doorway that was a portal, really, for me, and a lot of initiation and training through death. And then I've since helped multiple people cross over consciously, and I watch their spirit and I see where it goes. And I've helped families who have lost someone communicate with them and sort of close up any missing pieces or, unspoken things, unfinished business. And I've learned so much about all these variations of where the soul goes and all the different agendas and missions and places. It's extraordinary.
Well, did you have, other than the recall thing, when you were growing up, when you was a kid, did you have anything like that happen? That happened to me, like some kind of weird experience where you didn't really know who you were, or maybe you did know you were someone else? Because I think I had that when I was little.
Yeah, for me it was I didn't understand why people were calling me by my birth name. So when I was born, my mother named me Amy, and it wasn't until I was about 5 or 6 years old. I think I was 6 years old. I was in first grade. I remember it very clearly. I was on the playground, and people would call Amy, and I would look around wondering who they were talking to. Like, I didn't understand that was my name. And I remember I had to write my first homework assignment, and I was learning how to, spell my name. And I told my mother, that's not my name. Why are you calling me that?
Wow.
And she was like, no, that's your name. I was like, no, it absolutely is not my name. In fact, I hate that name. And she didn't know how to answer me. And this went on for many months at that time. And so I said, you have to, that's not my name. And was there something else you were going to call me? And she's like, oh, we considered calling you Chelsea, and we considered these other names. I forget what the other names were. And Chelsea was the only one that I was like, well, that's better than Amy, but it's just not my name, and I don't want to be called that. And she's like, well, that's your name. And anyway, I hated that it was only 3 letters. I mean, there was a lot of things about the word that I didn't like. And so she told me I could spell it. She had originally spelled it AMY, and she's like, okay, well, you can spell it Aimee. And I was like, well, that's better because those vowels are more proper. And she was like, yeah, and you can pronounce it Ami or. So I was like, okay. So I spelled it like that on my homework assignment, and I went to school, and the teacher was handing out the graded homework, and she said, oh, we have a new student in class, but I can't pronounce her name, and I think she's an international student. And I was so excited. I was sitting on the edge of my seat looking around the class of like 30 students looking for some international person who was going to be my new bestie. And she's like, yeah, I can't pronounce the name. And I was like, oh, great, someone from a foreign land. And and she says, oh, it's Aimee. And then I realized it was me. And I was like, that's me. And I walked up there and I grabbed the paper, and I was so upset. I felt that she had, I don't know what the word is, but like really humiliated me in front of it. Like she was dishonoring what I chose to call myself. She was being like sarcastic, and I really found it cruel. And anyway, I refused to go to school again. Like I wouldn't go back.
Not you.
My mom had to actually remove me from that school because there was no way I was going to be with that teacher. I just absolutely hated that woman after that moment. And they put me in another school, and they had this long talk with me that I had to go by that name because it was on my birth certificate and that I could never change it. And it infuriated me. I was like, you don't know who I am, and I don't speak English. And they were like, okay, well, what language do you speak? And I was like, I don't know. And then I would cry because I couldn't remember my name and I couldn't remember my language.
Well, I can tell you firsthand that I had weird little experiences like that. It's almost like you forget who you are for a minute, or maybe you're not forgetting, but you are, like we're talking about, remembering. And I don't know if you remember the time I told you when I went to the Luxor in Las Vegas, when I was around all that Egyptian stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the hieroglyphs and the statues and everything. For a moment there, I had a weird identity crisis, a weird sense of deja vu, and a very, very like compelling sense of home. Like I've been here before, and it felt more real of home than my actual home. And then that happens to me also on some nights when I do some heavy sky watching, when I'm really laid out just alone looking at the stars or whatever. I'll get those moments as well.
Yeah, I think so many of us are, from a galactic heritage. So some souls are actually from Earth, some are from different star systems. We all have our origins, and I think there's many of us that have that feeling of this isn't right, like the feeling very out of place. In my 20s, I used to just tell everyone I was a mutant hybrid from the Pleiades. And I did change my name when I was 21 to Aeon. And Aeon's the name of my soul. And the minute that name came to me, I was able to remember a lot. It was like a key that turned on a floodgate of star knowledge. And from that day on, I legally changed my name. I was able to embody my soul's wisdom, and that's when I launched the first web design company, like in the world. One of the first. I think there was maybe 2 others in San Francisco around the same time. We all kind of popped up at the same time. But there was a lot of information that came to me the moment I found my name.
I know you guys hear me say it a lot, man. Like I beat this stuff down into the ground, but Robert Monroe had the same thing happen to him. Like, he found out his name was Ashanine when he kept going into these realms, and at first he was like, why do you keep calling me that? But he said that he knew that that was his real name, and it's it's so crazy. I wonder what my real name is. How do we find this stuff out? How can we start to, what's some of the first things that we can do to start figuring this out?
Meditating on it deeply and asking yourself, getting quiet and having it be a strong intention to find out. My intention from 5 or 6 years old didn't respond until I was 21, right? It took me quite a long time to find my name. I go by Amelia now. That's a whole other story of another initiation. It's my spirit name. And it was another level of embodiment. So there's like the personality, the soul, and then the spirit embodiment. And Amelia is the name of my spirit taking shape, doing my work in the world. But I feel that when you have a strong longing, and if your longing is pure and it's from a good intention, your longing will be met. So I'm not talking about longing for material things or a specific someone. I'm not talking about romantic longings. I'm talking about a soul longing to know. If you can hold that and really allow yourself to feel the longing and to feel, there's probably grief and pain and discomfort in your longing, right? So really allowing the longing to be present will bring a response. And so sometimes those responses come in more puzzle pieces that you then need to put together over time. And sometimes it's like a present dropping down into your mind and just unwraps and it's there, like voila. So
don't you help people find this though? Like, don't you do regressions for people? This is what you do now, right?
Yes. So in the mystery school, I do a series of activations that help unlock the soul's wisdom in the body. So it's a lot of a foundational level of attunement to understand the mechanics of how to awaken, and then it's a year-long course. So there's different processes and series of activations that get stronger and stronger the more foundation you have ready to unfold your starseed, so you can see who you are and know yourself. And then there's a period of integration and really allowing it to flower and take root and grow strong. And then, in my private sessions, I do soul dives, which are more personal, one-on-one. I guide people to remove the blocks that are standing between knowing their soul nature. So sometimes those blocks can be in the form of a trauma. I think that's the most common block. Some sort of memory that's been pushed down and forgotten. So it could be a childhood trauma or a past life trauma that needs to be remembered and healed in order for you to see the nature of your soul. And then the soul gifts can come back and unfurl and expand, and with those soul gifts come these abilities and understanding and knowledge. And for each person, some people are here to awaken quickly and furiously, and it can be very dramatic in the way that they awaken. And for others, it's like honey, it's just this drips of nectar that are more gentle and everything in between. But that is what I'm here to do, is to help water those seeds to crack them open so that they can remember and be in good soil and take root and really grow strong.
Why do you think that so many of our listeners, and I really pay attention to, the messages they send, the posts they make, so many of our listeners are attracted to the night sky? Is that a human thing? Because it really, I don't think it's a human thing. I think, there's even sections of the sky that I'm more attracted to than other sections of the night sky, like the stars. I have this fascination with it, the moon and the stars. And I wonder if I'm a vampire sometimes. I don't even really give that much attention to the sun, but there's something about it. And I don't know if there's something to that. Are those the things that we should listen to, or am I just weird?
I think you're in good company here. Yeah, for me too, as a child, I was obsessed with the night sky. I just had to see the stars before I could fall asleep, and then I wouldn't really fall asleep. I would just be communicating with stars all night. I think that those of us who, are from a star system, do you know the star system you're from?
No, I have no idea. I'm waiting for you to tell me.
I believe you're Syrian. But some of us have multiple, so I'm Pleiadian originally, but I've been on Sirius, I've been on Orion. I've had other lifetimes on other star systems, so I've traveled a lot. But my home is the Pleiades. And so for me, yeah, same thing. When I look up, it doesn't matter where I am in the world. Often, I look up and I just see the Pleiades beaming, even if the Pleiades are really faint. Sometimes there's a lot of light pollution and the Pleiades aren't so obvious. I can see them. I know exactly where they are. They speak to me. It feels like home. It's a very, very strong connection. So I don't think you're strange at all. I think you're one of the mutant hybrids.
Well, if that's the case, how come I can't get these ships and UFOs to dance and move around for me like Dave Scott talks about? I'm not saying I don't believe him, because I do believe him when he says. Are you really
into the night sky that much? Do you camp? Do you lay out there? You have to be patient too.
Oh, come on.
Just,
you know what I said when you showed me y'all's bathroom up there. That kind of freaked me out a little bit. I don't know if I could camp like that.
Yeah, use the bathroom outside. How often are you outside? In order to have those experiences, you pretty much need to live outside. You can't be in a house with a roof and expect to see stuff, because you're not looking. You're not in the right.
Amelia to call me out. Yeah, of course I'm not out looking at. I need to put some kind of roof in this studio, because I'm in here 24/7, either doing my shows or helping somebody else with their show. Yeah, I'd love to. And one of these days, I'm just going to turn this thing on autopilot and leave for a little while.
Yeah, or, you can get a satellite and go sit somewhere more remote. But even when I lived in San Francisco, I had this cool warehouse in the Mission District on 17th and Cap, and there were no windows to the street because it's a horrible neighborhood. There was, gunshots and gangs and crazy stuff on the street. But the warehouse was so cool. It was this renovated top floor warehouse space, and so when you went inside, you felt like you were in this mansion of a house, and it had been done up really well when you were inside, but there were only skylights. So I had a whole room that was like a greenhouse. The whole ceiling was skylights, quite, almost I don't know, 800 square feet of skylights. And in every bedroom, there was skylights above the bed. And even though I was in the city and there's so much light pollution, I could see the Pleiades every night. I could see the moon cycles all the time. The stars talked to me all the time. And I loved that I could be in the city and still have that connection to the stars. So it's kind of I don't know, it's how much you want it or how much you're looking for it, but you definitely need to be looking in order to see stuff.
I don't know what to say. I do look, but I don't look long enough.
For 10 minutes in the cold, and then you go back inside. Do you sleep outside?
No, no. Honestly, now in the springtime, in the summertime, I've got a couple spots that I go out to and I look, but I just don't.
But you don't sleep out there.
No.
You need to lay down and be patient. So I've been seeing craft since I was a child, and I used to see a lot of it, but I lived in a suburban area in the foothills with very little light pollution. I mean, it was just rolling hills, and there was no light pollution, but I had a huge window in my bedroom, and I put my bed straight up against the window. So I looked at the stars every single night since I was a child, and I've always seen ships.
That's so cool.
It's rare for me to look at the night sky for a prolonged period. If I'm laying down and staring at the sky, it doesn't matter what country I'm in, I see ships.
Well, you know what? We're already past the first hour. We got to go into our first break. I do want to kind of talk about that a little bit more. And also, if you guys want to ask some questions, you can ask in the chat room in caps, or we can open the phones up if you want. But don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back. I'm Joe Roop with Spaced Out Saturday, and we're here with Miss Amelia Aeon Karris. Don't go anywhere.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Lorian Fenton here, SOR listeners. Join me at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th, where 14 presenters discuss all things disclosure, UFOs, and aliens. Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, and Melinda Leslie address disclosure. Preston Dennett will present Inside UFOs. Your Dave Scott and Lynn Buchanan tell of amazing alien contact. Get tickets at caufocon.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spaceoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spaceoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your Four Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Looking for nighttime adventure? Old school radio that delves into everything out of the norm? Then check us out at Spaced Out Radio. This is Dave Scott. Every Monday through Friday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we're going to take you on a wild ride ranging from conspiracies to true crime and every ghost, alien, and Sasquatch story in between. We're always live, and we're always interactive with you. So join us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, we own the night.
The opinions expressed by tonight's guest do not represent the opinions or position of Spaced Out Radio, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with SOR Media. Listener discretion is advised. This is Spaced Out Saturdays with host Joe Roop. You can follow Joe on Twitter at Lighting the Void. And if you want to call into tonight's show, dial 501-777-5631. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, from the deep south of Arkansas, here is Spaced Out Saturday host Joe Roop.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Saturday. Thank you, Bob. I am Joe Roop, your humble host. Don't forget, after the show, S4 is going to be on. If you're listening on the Fringe FM after the show, it'll be live as well. And tomorrow night, Elizabeth Anglin will be on Cosmic Passport, and we start the week off again with Dave Scott. Don't forget, Spaced Out Radio's here for you 7 nights a week. Also, help the station upgrade the studio at GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. And we are here with Miss Amelia Aeon Karris, and we were discussing, watching the night sky, how certain people could see, ships moving around and dancing in the sky, and I never could. And she busted me out and said, well, you actually got to go out and, stare at the sky for more than 30 minutes. And I think you're right. I'll go out and spend one night on the ground, if you will.
And keep your eyes open.
And keep my eyes open without falling asleep.
Don't fall asleep. Yeah.
It doesn't sound easy at all.
Well, the best time is like between 2 and 5 a.m.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that's the most active time in the night sky.
Well, I also found out here last week that the reason why the winter night sky looks a little bit clearer than the summer sky is because we're looking at a different version of the galaxy. There's not as much dust in the way, so that might help if you guys can bear it and go out in the winter and do it. I know all you Canadian folk can, but down here in Arkansas, if it gets below 40, I start whining like a little baby.
Yeah, that's too cold.
It's too cold, huh?
Yeah. Don't hurt yourself. Have fun with it.
Yeah, that's the
Come
big
to Mount
thing.
Shasta in the summer. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, tell me about Shasta. I mean, when it comes to the night sky there, can you tell me some of the things that you saw there?
Oh, yeah, it's really active here. If you can stay awake past midnight, you're going to see a lot. There's all kinds of craft going in and out of the mountain. There's orbs, weird laser. I see a lot of these laser shooting lights. It kind of looks like a ship that is jumping from one part of the sky to another part of the sky. That I've seen that a lot here. Kind of looks like a laser beam, like shoots really fast across the sky. But yeah, when you're sleeping out on the mountain, there was a few nights. Bridget Nelson, I don't know if you know who she is, but she does that Hybrid Kids YouTube channel. She happened to be camping with her group of 30. I think they were doing some sort of calling in craft, I don't know, but she happened to be camping near me and my boyfriend on the mountain, and that night was really extraordinary. There was a lot of activity out there for hours, and everyone could see it.
So people can call ships to them then. I mean, that's a real thing.
Yeah, I think certain types of people, obviously, she was out there with people who, are all starseeds and have encounters before. So the more people who have this connection and get together, the better. I mean, it probably wouldn't see so much if you're with a bunch of skeptics, right? Versus people that have already been contacted.
So
I think there was just a lot of contactees on the mountain that night because it was really active.
So I've always thought, I've had this idea, and a lot of people have validated it, that the UFOs that we see, especially when it comes to the orb-like UFOs and things that tend to move ways that we can't imagine, or they kind of come in and out of reality, are, I don't know how to put this, maybe beings that understand how to control consciousness and their energetic nature better than we do. Do you agree with that at all?
Yeah, I think, I mean, they're from another dimension, so they're interacting with our consciousness.
Well, I mean, what I mean is there's this idea that these aliens come from another planet, right? And these ships, they fly in from these other, they have to fly in. And we have this linear thought of like they're going to come in from another planet like we would, right? And it's a very linear thought, because if you look at it, and I forget, we were talking about this the other night, the probability of it, then there should be, when I was on Chris's show, there should be, just probability alone, there should be aliens all over the place and ships flying all over the place due to the amount of planets that we have in the universe. But when you look on a NASA satellite feed or something like that, you may catch some things every now and then, but it's not the traffic that you would expect unless they're moving in a different way than we look at, like what planes and our ships would move.
Yeah, so from my perspective, there's a ton of traffic all the time. I've been seeing it since I was a child. Sometimes I see it in broad daylight. It's a Grand Central Station out there. It's not like they just come in once in a while. I mean, they've been here as long as the planet's been here, moving in and out.
So are you saying that you see things that some people don't see?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't understand why everyone else couldn't see it. And growing up with a Christian family, they didn't believe in UFOs, but I was seeing them all the time, and not only believed in them, like they were my friends and they interacted with me. So, when I would look at the night sky, I would ask them questions and they would come in response to my questions, or they would flash or dance or move around in response to me. So they were my friends and my allies. And then when I was 12, so that was like from 6 years old, I remember. And my friends would see it, like they would come over. My best friend, childhood friend, she would come and stay the night with me a lot, and she could see it with me, and she was always surprised. But I would tell, my sister, my family, and they would think that I was kind of making it up. And then one night we were camping in the redwoods. We used to go camping in the summertime as a family, and we were in the Santa Cruz redwoods, and this huge ball of fire like flew out of the sky, lit up the entire night sky to daylight. And ironically, I had been praying. So I'll back up a little bit. I was with my sister. We were supposed to be back at the campsite by dark, but we were inside the clubhouse playing ping pong, and we didn't realize it had gotten dark outside. And so when we came out, it was pitch dark, and it was a new moon, so there was no lights whatsoever.
Right.
And we didn't have a flashlight, and we couldn't see the trail to get back to our campsite. So my sister is deathly afraid of the dark. She has like phobias, and she's older to me, like 4 years. So I was 12, she must have been like 16. And I was like being the big sister and holding her hand, being like, okay, we're going to do it. Just follow me. And I'm like the brave one walking forward. And I said, let's just pray. And I said, pray for light. Like, I want to be able to see. And at that moment, this huge ball of fire blasted through the sky and turned the entire sky to daylight so we could see perfectly. And we were like, oh my God, we can see. And so we just started running, and as the ball of fire was flying above our head, we could see the entire path to our campsite. So when we got there, we were like out of breath. And when we had got to the campsite is when the ball of fire actually hit the earth. It landed like not that far away it seemed like it wasn't that far away from where we were camped. And my parents came out of this, it was like a trailer, and they were like, where have you been? We said, you're in trouble. You should have been here.
Well, wait a minute. They didn't acknowledge the big ball of fire that just...
Well, yeah, right? So I said, I was so excited. Me and my sister were both like freaking out. Like, the whole sky just lit up. There's a ball of fire. And my mom thought we were just, making up an excuse for being late. And I was like, no. We need to keep going into the woods. A huge meteor just like flew out of the sky and hit the earth. And there's got to be a crater. Like, it hit the earth. And they didn't believe us. And later, I think we went home, and I was obsessed about it. Like, I dreamt about it. I mean, it didn't leave me. Like, it made obviously a huge impression on me. And I was really different after that. And I came back, and I think we saw on the news that a meteor did hit. And it wasn't that far from where we were camped. But what was really weird was that I had something at the base of my spine. Like, there was a, like, well, I mean, at the time I didn't know what an implant was, but later on I came to realize that I had some sort of implant was put in me that night that meteor hit the Earth, that we saw that ball of fire. And it was something that I protected. I felt special. I felt protected by some extraterrestrial race, and really didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want to tell my parents anymore because they didn't believe anything I would tell them. So I kind of kept it hidden, and it would hurt me sometimes. Like, I was an athlete, and when you do sit-ups on like a gym floor, the implant would push against my spine, and it was really sensitive. And that used to bother me, but I would never tell anyone because I didn't want anyone to take it out because it gave me some sort of special feeling and made me aware of things. Like I could sense when an earthquake was coming, and I would tell my sister, we're going to have an earthquake. And then, within 5 minutes we'd have an earthquake.
So did you feel that the next day you woke up, or
yeah.
Okay.
Upon coming home from that trip, I noticed it right when I came home from that camping trip.
Wow. 423 area code. You're on the air with Amelia Aeon Karris. Who's with us?
Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tommy.
Hey,
How
Tommy.
you doing?
How's it going?
Hey, Tommy.
Hey, was it Amy Lee? What'd you say?
It's Amelia.
Amelia, right. I'm getting a little mixed up with the story with the names there. That's interesting.
You're not the only one.
Amelia, that's very ingenious to make up your own name. I didn't have the foresight. I had my name changed when I was adopted when I was, 8 years old, I think. Anyway, I've always, well, not always, I feel that when we wanted to touch upon a few things here, if I could, if you don't have anybody in line right at the moment, very interesting. You guys, and the work you're doing, that when we ascend beyond this plane, that the name we have now is not like you guys talking about going to be our name, that we have another name. Whoever, whatever is left up to us to find out or learn about at such time, but right now we're using the names we're using to navigate around. But I wanted to just say a few things. Let's see, it came to my mind while you were discussing there to just collaborate upon. And, a few things come to mind. I couldn't write enough notes fast enough, but, so much to say, so little time. But anyway, excuse me about all this. One was that, just because someone might know about some conspiracies and some conspiracy theories doesn't necessarily mean that they know what's really going on. And there's a larger, all I mean to say is not to put anybody down, but there's a larger, much larger truth for us left open to expand upon. And this is the preparation I feel that's going on now with this disclosure and people like yourself having these radio shows, more participation to come to a place of eventually unity. So it's very critical that our input is impeccable, that we mean what we say and say what we mean, and we're paying attention, and we're learning some discipline, and to be able to be open and present so that we can expand when the ever-increasing amount of information is going to be flooding our brains so that we don't just totally crash and burn. But I'm following an ascension event in my mind myself. That's most exciting to me. And from what I've gathered, I hope it's in our lifetime. I don't want to reincarnate anymore. I've heard maybe 300 years, 30 years, maybe about 4 or 5 years. And and that is the caterpillar to the butterfly, to crystalline Ascension is just simply an elevation to the vibration resonance, and nobody's going anywhere necessarily. This is a group migration, a soul migration in a group, all of us, that we've got to learn to be able to, we need to help to and learn to be able, so that we'll be able to use our own free will in the garden. And this pestilence must be removed on the planet. These the impediment that's blocking our ability that we got invaded over. And this new place is like a fish out of water, 3D to 5D, let's say. If it needs to be. There needs to be conversations about it. Imagination is more important than knowledge. The only thing that does ascend is our very colorful and vivid imagination. I imagination, I magi, I nation, I imagination, okay? We are the magi, each of us. We're already ascended masters. There is no death. We've probably lived trillions of years, trillions, and just don't have the memory of all those lifetimes at this stage, because of the fallen consciousness and having to find our way back to finally graduate. And I understand that you had to have ascended 3 times at least before you could have been here for this final and fourth upliftment, where you've got you live thousands of years, and this is all sounding too good to be true. We're only operating on 2 really cylinders, you might say, DNA, understand, when we should have 12 or 24. And there's not 90% junk DNA. God doesn't make junk. So there's unavailable information that we're just not able to access right now, because we're in this quarantine with the dark and the lights to help us learn in this evolution chamber, you might say, to learn and grow, as you've mentioned, to finally evolve. And I think that's in our lifetime, because we're talking about it, and the language actually precedes the event. So the fact that we're talking about it, and it's in our minds, and we want this new place, that we're actually bringing it in by the conversation in and of itself. And there's really nothing to do, only to be. And these false matrix got everybody to do this, do that, do this, do that, out of our best interest, when it could have been done a whole different way. And so we've got to pull back from that which is false and start figuring out what we're about, and measuring our moves, because each move is an intention that we're putting out there. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at all. I constantly correcting myself and making amends to myself, and because we're not going to escape our karma. And it was simply to resolve our karma and get past our own differences that we're at war with ourselves.
So I'm assuming here that you don't have a question for Amelia. Is that right?
Oh, did you have to have one?
Well, I figured that's why you were calling in. Are you validating some of the stuff she was saying?
Oh yeah, that's what I said in the beginning. I was just collaborating upon it because it was so interesting. I hope you didn't mind.
No, that's all right.
Hardly too many people to do so with, I mean, she said you guys just had interesting conversations.
Well, I've heard you call in the show a couple times, Tommy, and I got to say, it's a lot of information you spill out on the show. I think maybe, you're needing to express it. You ought to do your own podcast or something at some time. I'd definitely listen to it.
Oh, I couldn't stand myself. I really, I try to talk fast to be considerate. It doesn't come out of me this fast. I'm really having to work myself over to get all this out and say some few things that
I understand.
Would take a while. I'd run out of things to say. Like I say, there's only to be, not to do, and I'm just trying to maintain a simple, keep my peace of mind is the most valuable thing, and learn my own richness and resolve my own differences and forgive and accept the fact that there's nothing outside of myself that is not me, so I'm really the problem. And once you learn, anybody learns to accept the fact that they themselves are complicit and participant in this tyranny, and that I am the enemy, then everything is resolved. Then you could come together. I'm it, tag, I'm it. And the test was, could we pass the test for an ascension point? And I think with this disclosure you guys talked about, on the show, and Grant Cameron, all these people in the Molten Hell, I've heard it all. And, by any means, I don't know everything and never will. I don't need the fame and the popularity or the websites, any of that. I live low. But so it's all leading up to a preparation that if anybody could make up their mind about what it is, because that's how you could use your free will to imagine an ascension point level. That it's gearing up, and the good alliance, the good faction, is being helped so that we could help ourselves, pull ourselves out of it. To learn, to come together, to have the opportunity where we don't have the stress and the pressure and the threats and the coercion and the intimidation. When that is removed, you start talking, you start thinking about, when you take all the excuses away from people for their all the reasons they can't live and be themselves, then you're going to have a quandary. People are, because that's what's going to happen. And that's going to lead us to an ascension point where the sun is going to, burp or sneeze or a solar flash, a plasma, photon, upliftment, and you might be right where you are, but in another surreal, having all your memory, your wholeness and completeness, memory of lifetimes, and you got to think about a crystalline situation where you couldn't light a match.
Well, Tommy, I appreciate your call, man, but we're 12 minutes into this thing, buddy. I gotta get back into Amelia's thing here.
I would eventually shut up, but I just got, there's not many opportunities to,
I understand.
So I appreciate it, guys. So I'll listen up, and thanks again.
No problem, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay,
Tommy. Yeah, you're in good company. I think a lot of like-minded
406
thinkers here.
area code. You're on the air with Amelia Aeon Karris.
Hello, Joe. Hello, Amelia.
Hey, Kat.
Hello.
What's going on?
Hi. Calling because I do like beer, and I do have a question for Amelia.
I owe you beer. That's right.
Yep. 24-ouncer.
Or is it? What kind of beer is it? I need to know right now.
Oh, my goodness. I guess it would have to be a double beer if it's a 24-ouncer.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. She just wants the 24-ounce beer. All right, shoot with your question.
Okay. I think that possibly their way of letting contact happen for you is, I used to be in a group praying to ascend the masters, and I'm sure that you understand that kind of contact, right, Amelia?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So they used to teach, the group I was in, is you don't just pray, but you talk to ascended masters as if they're your friends, just like your own friends, and therefore you enrich a deeper relationship with them. So I've transferred that now to more star groups so that, if first contact does happen, that you've already established some kind of higher consciousness level of communication with them. So I guess my question is do you do that? Because I do that with playing groups, other groups, just talking as if they were my friends. Do you do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it started when I was a child, and then I've had various levels of contact as an adult. Some which were thrust upon me. Mostly, they talk to me so much. I'm trying to contact them more that I'm being contacted. So, I guess in a meditative state, if I want to ask a question or I want to find contact, I can ask. I've had different guides or councils that I've sat on or who've asked me to counsel with them, so I would ask them questions and receive answers. But most of my experiences with extraterrestrials were them contacting me.
Oh, that's interesting.
But yeah, it is very friendly. Sometimes it's absolutely frightening, terrifying, but most of the time, well, I don't know. I've never looked at a percentage-wise, but some of it's been frightening. Some of it has been very friendly.
So you mean you talk to him like a friend, like we're talking now? Like just, is that what you mean?
You talking to me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like, because when I used to pray to ascended masters, that's the way it was taught. Like, you talk to Jesus. You're raised Christian. I mean, wasn't there a point sometime, Joe, in your life where you'd kind of talk out loud to Jesus?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you didn't always get a response unless it was something you just felt in your gut, right?
Yeah, that too. And sometimes I would get answers, in my own way. Like I didn't see, the thing about it is I think that we don't know how to pay attention well enough sometimes. Sometimes the answers are given to us all over, and we don't really pay attention. We don't pay attention to the deja vu moments. We don't pay attention to the song on the radio or the TV, the message on the TV, or synchronistic events is what I'm saying. Things that I think I might have just passed up when I was younger.
Right. And that's why I think meditation, I go to a meditation group, I've told you before, like once a week, because it's a real quiet place, and sometimes that's when you will get some of your answers. And I used to be in an astronomy group where I went out once a month to stargaze, and that's definitely a form of meditation, and that's when you can see things in the sky. So it seems to get harder and harder to do that, but maybe because there's just so much going in our lives that we can't still our minds. You're right about that.
Well, I will tell you this, Kat. There is a lot. If you're, I know you, and I'm sure you listen to a lot of meditations, and you do a lot of meditations, and you probably do a lot of guided meditations too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I do the same thing, and the best guided meditation to this day, when I know I really want to get into spirit, if I want to put headphones on and listen to it, is Amelia's meditation. The one that that you have on your website. And I'm not playing. She keeps so sweet, thinking I'm being sweet or blowing. I'm not blowing smoke whatsoever. I've sat through countless guided meditations. Catalina knows this as well. And I can't explain it. The way you do it and what you're talking about during the meditation, I don't want to give it away, but it really takes me to a different place. Almost it feels physically.
That's awesome.
You should get that.
And Catalina, I think that you're right on track with talking to them as your friends. I think that more people need to do that. I think so many people put ascended masters and angels and guides and different interdimensional beings on these pedestals, like that they're somehow better than them. And that's really dangerous. It's dangerous because they can manipulate you. You're giving your power away to them. So yeah, that's one thing I like to reiterate with my students is to stand next to them, to sit and counsel with them. So interdimensional beings aren't better than us. They're just in another dimension. So the more we can stand in our sovereignty and communicate as one being to another sentient being, the more we'll understand our role here and what we're here to do.
Awesome. I'm going to have to get some more lines for the show. If you guys are calling in, you just have to wait until Catalina hangs up.
I'll let you go. Thank you.
No, you're fine. I was just letting everybody know.
Thanks for calling, Catalina.
Yeah, thank you. I do owe you a beer. God bless you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, so I guess I'm going to have to get that multi-line system again for this show. But, whoever was calling in, you can go ahead and call back in. If you don't get through, that just means I'm on the phone with somebody. So if I'm not, then you call in, I'll pick you up. I think it was a 360 area code that was calling in. But, yeah, Catalina has, she'll send me stuff about meditations, and she's really into the shamanic stuff too. So I'm starting to get a little bit more into this whole shamanic thing. And, yeah, before we get back in the conversation, I want to thank Tommy and Catalina for calling in. Thank you for that. And I think there's something to it. And I'm always trying to bridge the gap between, the ufology field and the spirit field. And now that's kind of where I want to go with this. Like, what led you, because you seem to have some, alien type experiences when you were a child. So what led you to that? Well, actually, let's take this call first, and then we'll go down that road. 360 area code. You're on the air with Amelia.
Hi. First thing I'd like to say to Amelia is aloha ke akua.
Aloha.
Who are we speaking with?
It's Yvonne Scott.
Hey, Yvonne.
I don't know if my question is appropriate for the program because I came in a little bit late, but it's kind of like, I was, hoping that Amelia would come on so that I could pose it to her. My question, well, let me say, I was listening to another show in which the people on their guides were ETs or aliens that they would, go back to get answers to people's questions. But in one of their responses, they brought up the idea of duality, and their guide, was to say that we are to keep the duality perception of our reality. And I experienced, I felt very disconcerted about that. Because I felt that in our duality perception of our reality, it creates the energy that, the more malevolent entities feed on. And so I would want kind of like where Amelia kind of stands on this, or...
Sure, what do you think, Amelia?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think one that we don't ask ourselves enough in the spiritual community. So I feel that there's a fine line between focusing on duality or focusing on oneness. So we are in a dualistic dimension, and to deny duality at this level, to me, is foolish. However, we can vibrate to a level of a harmonic and unity and resonance that is more of a fifth dimensional frequency to rise above conflict. However, we are still here, and there is duality amongst us. So we live in a paradox, and I think a lot of spiritual bypassing happens when we just refuse to see darkness. So there's a lot of gifts in the darkness, and it's there for a reason. And we're not yet 100% in 5D. So even though we might be able to reach that consciousness or hold that frequency, we also still dance in a dualistic nature. So it's a tricky one, and I think it to answer that specifically, and it really depends on the level of consciousness that your soul is here to
I think
work
you should be
through.
careful. And I'm just going to chime in here and say I think you should be careful with the dark, I guess, the negative side. There has been people, like, let's just say Crowley, for instance, that wanted to make sure that they got in touch with that just to understand it. And yeah, I mean, he did learn a lot from it, and a lot of people learned from him, but it destroyed him too at the same time.
It did, and it will envelop you, but I think it's there also to differentiate from. So it's not that it's not about like good versus bad, but there is light and there is darkness, and then there's forces of the light and forces of the dark. So to pretend that there is no dark is where spiritual bypassing and ignorance and naivety get you in a lot of trouble. To say that, like, oh, everything's of the light. You hear light workers all the time. Oh, everything's of the light. I refuse to see that. Well, that's just denial.
Right. Yeah.
That's just putting blinders on. If you see the darkness and choose to stand in a place of freedom and clarity and resonance and peace within yourself, and you can literally create that frequency inside yourself and hold that resonance, that is the higher level of understanding of holding duality. But most people are not there yet. Some of us are, but most people aren't, and so they skip it. They skip it because it's uncomfortable, and they don't want to see the darkness. And so we need to know that both exist, and we live in a polarized reality.
Does that answer your question, Yvonne?
Somewhat. I mean, I totally understand the practicality of us to remain in this duality now. But I also see that within our living and coming to, how would I say, reconciling the duality, that we are going to evolve in somehow, you know what I mean?
I agree.
But the thing I get very uncomfortable about is the idea of an active meddling of ETs in our journey, in our sense of evolving or awakening. I set very strict protocols in how my guides are to interact with me.
Oh, wait a minute. Do you? Because I think I understand what you're saying, and I could be wrong here, but I have the same kind of fear, like I'm being meddled with, or almost used like an experiment type thing. Is that what you're talking about? Like they're meddling
Not
with
so
you?
much. No, I don't find that, because I've never. I mean, I have been taken by ETs, but it was not a negative experience. Okay, and then you also remember I interacted with ETs, but that was because they were requesting me as a healer, to help out in some way. But I don't. But I find, like, when ETs become guides communicating and giving you the answer, when I feel, no, the answer is already within us.
Ah, okay, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Because I don't allow my guides to speak with me, okay? They can give me, like, in synchronicity, I can see their guidance. If they are wanting to communicate with me directly, I tell them to go to what I have had all my life, since a very young child, Amelia, what I call my still small voice.
I think that you, Yvonne, definitely have a clear sense of direction, and your protocols are clear.
Well, yes, because I will not, and I really resonated with the previous show I heard from you, in the sense of I will not allow myself to turn over my sense of free will.
Exactly.
In other words,
thank God.
The guidance I'm receiving, or the spiritual nudging I need to go through, I'm capable of finding my way and become into an understanding. You know what to gain the knowledge or the understanding or wisdom. I don't want somebody to be telling me it.
No, you're a very wise soul, Yvonne. It's nice to hear your clarity. Yeah, you know exactly the difference.
I mean, I got my dark soul. My dark night of the soul was like pretty effective in stripping me.
I wonder what show that was you heard.
At this point.
Looks like you passed the test. Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, I thank you so much for asking that question, because I think a lot of people get lost on that point and give their power away and don't understand exactly what's going on. But you've had the experience and you know it to be true for yourself. Like you've been through it. You've been initiated in it.
Yeah. What the difficulty that I find is when you're discussing paranormal or you're discussing the spiritual, they're both based upon experience. It's an experiential phenomena. And so it is, when people start asking for proof or, you know what I mean? Well, to me, my response is, it is not my kuleana to prove to you that this is true.
Right on.
Yeah, you already know.
I mean, because I had this experience. It's up to you to struggle through of believing it or not. I don't need to do your homework.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know I sound pretty, what I mean.
No, I'm with you. I know exactly what you mean. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for, making this clarity for me. Thank you.
Thank you for calling in, Yvonne.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
I wonder, it took me a minute to understand what she was saying, but yeah, that does kind of make me wonder too, like once you get to these points in consciousness and you start meeting these entities, I guess it could become easy, entities, or your guides, or whatever you want to call them. How vulnerable are you to being led around by the nose by these higher beings, instead of finding your higher self?
Mm-hmm. They'll make you do all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, for me, one of my main initiations, I think I shared this with you on a show before, where I was working and I got bashed around by those big thugs. Yeah, I mean, when we talk about ETs and spiritual, for me, they're all ETs. Like, it's just other beings from another dimension. So I don't differentiate so much. Like if we talk about Krishna and Shiva and Durga, Lakshmi, the whole Hindu pantheon, I mean, they are ETs from other planets. And when you read the Vedas, it completely coincides with the intergalactic federation. I mean, to me, it's all the same thing. It's just two different schools of thought that are now finally, like science and spirituality are finally meeting on a common ground. So, for example, when I was in India, I'd had all this Pleiadian experiences, and I was walking at a conference, and some Baba was like, "Oh, you're living where the rishis lived. You must be a rishi." Kept talking to me about the rishis, and I'd heard about the rishis in India, and never once did I think that rishis. Okay, so they started calling me a rishi. I didn't understand why they were calling me a rishi.
Sure.
I thought it was because of my spiritual powers that I was, they could see that I had these gifts, these cities open. And then I went to this land where there's a lot of ET activity. There's these orbs that are flying around and whatnot. And I recognized them as Pleiadian beings, and they kept calling the Pleiadians rishis. And then I said, "Who are the rishis?" And they said, it's the 7 sisters. And so for me, there was this moment of like, oh my God, all of these Hindu words are the same as my Pleiadian heritage. It's the same place.
Yeah, well, if you think about it too, when I was in college, I took a course in religion, and I had no idea that if you really tracked it back on the timeline, that the Hindu religions, the Eastern religions, they say Judaism is the oldest, but in actuality, the Hindu religions and that caste system goes way back. It's like the oldest. So there's got to be some form of truth related to ancient history and ancient knowledge there, you know. And it really relates to the Egyptian stuff. If you look into the alternative Egyptian view of, like, you know, John Anthony West's view of how old it actually really was. So, yeah, and
yeah, and it's
when
the
I read
same.
the stories about Krishna, it's the little blue boy. Why was he blue? Tell me why he was blue. No one ever talks about that.
Yeah, and that, you know, it's from the healers are blue, and yeah, so to me, it's all the same thing. And I think when you're mixing spiritual people with contactees and experiencers, it's kind of a weird vocabulary because you've got this sort of science galactic words, and then you have these ancient spiritual text words, but they correlate with each other.
Sure. I mean, if you're remembering your nature that goes back before the history of the earth, right? Your higher self. I mean, we're going to have all kinds of things that we call them here, you know, in this land. But that's pretty cool that you experienced it. And that's what I was going to kind of get into. I do got a couple of questions here from the Spreaker chat. First one's from Joseph. Wants to know that, and this is in the Spreaker chat room, wants to know if you're affiliated with any traditional Western mystery schools.
No, I'm not affiliated with them. Okay. I've worked with Native American Mystery School and other sort of Celtic occult-based schooling, but I'm not affiliated with any other school except my own.
Gotcha. Next question from Dawn. Joe, can you get a Canadian number? LOL. Yes, I'll work on that. Dawn's always, but she's been hounding us for a Canadian number for a while. Eric Markham wants to know, is there a meditation for people like me who cannot get their brains to quiet down? I would go to Amelia's website.
Yeah, there's if you sign up for my Moon blog, you'll get the free MP3. Also, if you go to knowtheself.com/video, there's a 20-minute video that you can get in your email instantly there that will guide you in the vertical alignment and becoming sovereign. And it's a guided meditation, and it's very energetic. You'll feel an activation if you can sit and listen to it. And people who tend to not be able to meditate generally, like quiet their mind, are able to do it. But if the 20 minutes is still feeling too long, start with the 11-minute MP3. And if you go to SoundCloud and type my name in, you'll find a few others there if you need some variation.
So I'm going to go back. Well, there's another question. From BTO Beyond the Omniverse, does Amelia consider the multiverse to be based on parallel universes which exist within this universe, or unique equal universes outside of this universe?
Well, that's deep. Yeah, both.
It is a deep question, but that's BTO for you. You know, he's always got the deep questions.
Yeah, he wants to expand and pop the mind open. Yeah, it's pretty mind-bending, but yes, there are parallel realities and multiverses beyond this one, all included in what I'm navigating through.
Char wants to know, do we want to become like aliens? I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm not sure I know what an alien is right now.
I think the one thing that interdimensional beings have that we could learn is a sense of self. They're not doubting themselves because they know who they are. And so in that sense, I would say, please remember, get to know who you are. Strip off all this programming that had you fit into a certain box and be someone you're not. And it just needs to fall off. And so there's a kind of rebelliousness that happens when you break those chains that bind you. But if you have a mentor and a guide and some clear kind of tools and techniques to get you there, you're going to be so much better without the program. My book has a lot of tools in it. I try and share them as freely as possible. There's so many ways to start stripping and breaking down those old constructs, but it's really critical right now. We're kind of at a point where we need everyone to wake up and remember, put themselves back together, and really live out their unique soul essence.
Well, what I want to do as we move into the last part of the show is we'll definitely take some more of your questions or calls. If you want to ask, that's awesome. And thank you all for the questions and the phone calls. But I want to get into this back to remembering our galactic nature and kind of go along with your story as you had these experiences in the sky and these experiences that happened to you when you were younger, and try to understand why you started moving across the world and studying all these things. So, yeah, I'd like to get into that if that's possible, and when we come back. All right. Okay. So, guys, don't go anywhere. I'm Joe Roop. This is Spaced Out Saturday. We're here with Miss Amelia Aeon Karris. We'll be right back, guys.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Hello, SOR listeners. Lorian Fenton here. Let me ask you, now that disclosure's happened, what does it mean for ufology? For answers, join us at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th. Keynote speakers Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, and Melinda Leslie address the current disclosure agenda. Dave Scott, yes, you're Dave Scott, and Lynn Buchanan tell of amazing alien encounters. Get your tickets at caufocon.com. That's caufocon.com.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories. From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and I want you to come on a nightly journey. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, every Monday through Friday, you can come hang out with me and the other space travelers. We have it all from Carl the Alien bouncing on by to those misfit gnomes causing havoc. It's 3 hours of fun and entertainment on those topics the mainstream really doesn't want to touch. Come get all paranormal with us at spacedoutradio.com, and together, my friends, along with our resident guitar god Bumblefoot, we own the night.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The opinions expressed by tonight's guest do not represent the opinions or position of Spaced Out Radio, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with SOR Media. Listener discretion is advised. Want more information about our programming? Check out spacedoutradio.com. You can follow our host, Joe Rube, on Twitter at Lighting the Void. Call in to tonight's show at 501-777-5631. Now, entering the radio ring from Arkansas, Spaced Out Saturday host, Joe Rube.
Man, there's no better radio announcer on the planet than Bob Davis. Thank you, Bob. That's right, we're back with Spaced Out Saturday. I am your host, Joe Roop, and we're here with Miss Amelia Aeon Karris from knowtheself.com, and we are discussing remembering your galactic nature. Some pretty interesting stories she shared with us and some interesting questions and answers. I wanted to get into the process when you started traveling after these things happened in your life. But I do, we're getting a lot of questions in the chat room about your mystery school. And, you don't just accept anybody into the school. You have like this application process that you go through?
Yeah, I'm really looking for the spiritual warriors out there who are really wanting to remember fully and live out their divine destiny and bring their work out into the world, really discovering their nature and are dedicated to the path. There's a there's an application process, and the doors open next Tuesday. I only open the school twice a year. It's a year-long program that's split into 2 6-month sessions with a month break between it. So the first 6 months is for apprentices that are just coming into the school, and the second 6 months is for becoming an adept and really bringing your gift out into the world. So yeah, I'm really looking, it's a small group. Each cohort is a small group situation. And so I'm looking for specific souls that are in alignment with me. So if anyone listening is interested, if you go to my website, knowtheself.com, there's a link to the mystery school. And you can read all about it and understand what's being offered there. And if you're interested, set up a time to talk to me. You'll see my calendar there. And in order to get on my calendar, you need to upload a photo and your birth date and sort of give me permission to look at the soul records so that we can see if we're in soul alignment. And if we are, then we'll jump on the phone and I'll explain to you more about the school and see. We'll know really quickly if you're ready and able. And some people think that they're not, that like their gifts aren't out and developed yet. That's okay. But if you're feeling really called and you're super curious and you want to know if you're in and you're willing to go the distance and do the work, go to my website and sign up to have that call with me, and we'll know really quickly.
I'm just going to put this out there. Markham, you should definitely look into that. And it's at knowtheself.com, right? They're asking for links in the chat room.
Yeah, Know the Self. I'll put it in the chat room for those of you who are in the Spreaker chat. I'll actually send the direct link. It's, if you want to go straight to the Mystery School page, it's knowtheself.com/join-mystery-school. So I'll go ahead and paste that into the Spreaker chat.
Joe Monk says, I haven't gone to a school that I haven't been kicked out of. Well, you can bet your bottom dollar Amelia will give you the drop if she needs to. I can tell you that right now.
I've kicked people out. Yeah, it happens sometimes.
So there's the link there for you guys. It's also on the website. It's knowtheself.com too. It's pretty simple. I really think, and you guys, if you're interested in that, really get every meditation you can from her. And I mean that. And I do know people personally, a couple of people that are students or clients of Amelia's, and they can't say enough about her. So, yeah, you have my endorsement all the way.
Thanks, Joe.
Whatever that means to you. So, yeah, so I want to get back in. Well, there's another question there I do need to ask. I don't want to pass up Char's question. So she's asking, so are you saying that we're not from this planet? Are you saying we're not human? We're not from Earth? And she's kind of wanting to know, like, you to explain that.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, we're in human form right now. But some of us are from another star system and carry a different coding, and some of us have always been from Earth and are very Earth-based souls. So, and there's multiple star systems and other universes. So it really just depends on you. I don't know you, Char, so I couldn't explain where you're from, but you could figure it out.
Yeah, so we're from all over, apparently, from what I'm understanding.
Yes. This is a huge congregation of intergalactic species mixing and merging with each other here on Earth.
So as these things happened, and I'm kind of wanting to tell your story because I know so many can relate. As these things happened to you when you were a child, you had quoted that your name wasn't right. You knew you were from somewhere else. You could get things in the sky you could see that moved for you. You had that thing that happened at your camping trip was amazing. And before the calls started coming in, you were talking about certain things that had happened to you. I don't know if you want to go down that road, but my biggest question is when did you decide I need to start traveling across the world to all these different places and visit these different mystery schools? And I mean, that's a big step to do that. You know, it seems a little bit scary to me.
Well, it was more for survival. It didn't seem scary at the time. Looking back, it seems like I was kind of naive and stupid maybe. But when I was 17, I graduated high school. I had a really hard time in high school. I had stalkers. It was a bad situation for me. High school was challenging, and my family wasn't really there for me. I didn't have a supportive family, and I didn't have anyone guiding me. So I graduated high school barely, and then I was just sort of left to my own devices, really, and nobody had a plan for me, and I didn't have a plan for myself. So I entered the community college and was just kind of lost, looking for what am I supposed to do as an adult? I have no idea. And I saw that they had a study abroad program in a few countries, but one of them was England. And I just needed to get the hell away from my abusers and the place that I had grown up. And so I applied, and my mother actually laughed at me when I applied, to think that I could, somehow get a scholarship to something like that, because I hadn't really done so great in high school, because I didn't apply myself, but I won. I was determined that I was going to get this scholarship, and they granted it to me. So I went to a study abroad program in England, but I really had no intention of ever coming back to the U.S. So that lasted like 3 months, but I just needed to keep moving. And so I have some of my ancestry is from England, so I really wanted to go back. I was looking for my tribe. I've been looking for my tribe since I was 6, like wondering where are my people. And so in England, I found some sense of normalcy, much more than I've had in America. But from there, I left to Israel, and I have no Jewish blood whatsoever, but I knew it was a holy land and sort of, where the Bible had been written. So I went there on a one-way ticket with like $50 in my pocket I think I was 19 at the time, and really didn't know what I was doing. I was just looking for signs and symbols and being guided, and I ended up staying there for 6 months and kind of working as a waitress, doing whatever odd jobs I could get just to kind of make money. But I met a man there who ended up coming back to the U.S. with me, and that was my partner who I opened the web design company with. And it was meeting him. I basically needed to go there to meet him, because it was with him that I was able to remember who I was as a soul. And so I was just on this journey to uncover missing pieces. And what I was finding as a young person is that I had been in these places before. I roamed around. So my first place was Stratford-upon England, which is Shakespeare's birthplace. And I felt, I was dreaming in Shakespeare. I was hearing this old English come through me. And, it turns out I have a lot of past lives in that time period. And then when I was in Israel, there was these old cities like Jaffa and Tel Aviv that I could see pictures. Like I would sit on certain steps and I would start to see things and know things. And I was just fascinated by that. Like, what is this memory? Because I grew up not believing in past lives. Christians don't have the concept of past life, but it was happening to me. I had all these memories of Egypt and time frames and understandings that were mysterious and strange. And then different teachers would come to me. So I didn't seek out mystery schools, I just found myself meeting mystics and yogis and magical beings that would recognize me and sort of take me in.
Cool. We have a caller here, 484 area code. You're on the air with Amelia.
Hello, this is Christopher Fisher from Allentown.
What's up, Fisher?
Hey there.
Oh, not much. This really resonates with me. I've been looking for my own tribe as well.
Nice.
And I've had dreams and experiences of it too, and it's been a real interesting journey. Most of my experiences is different places in Europe, from recent past and current times.
You've had dreams about it, like visions, or you actually went to? Okay.
Visions and lucid dreams.
Right on. Do you have a question for Amelia or anything that you just want to tell her?
Yes. Excuse me. I'm curious. Does this happen to most people? They get a glimpse of where they were in the past like this, and do they end up? Some people actually eventually visiting the area that they astral to like that.
I think if you're listening and paying attention, that anyone can do it. Do people do it? I think it takes, someone really craving it and wanting to, but it sounds like you're doing that already. And if you can actually go to the places, and it's a sense of deep listening, right? Like when I was young, I was a wanderer. I didn't really have any parental supervision, so I was kind of left to my own devices.
Yes.
That's why I'm so rebellious. I guess my family sort of trusted me, but they also neglected me and didn't really care so much, so I could just wander and listen to the earth, and the earth speaks, and these landscapes would speak to me, and old furniture, strangely enough, would communicate with me, and jewelry. Like I would go into like an estate sale or these antique stores, and I would see things and hear things and feel things, and it's a curious mind that opens these gateways. So if you're listening and quiet enough and tracking, and you have an ability to respond and pay attention and ask the right questions, I think that you can discover so much about yourself and where you came from and what you're doing here and what all this means. A lot of times these sort of recalls of particular places or people are because there's something that needs to be healed from that timeline, and it needs to be remembered consciously. And so when that's happening, I would just dive in deeper. If you're having lucid dreams about it, like if it's just happening to you, then maybe try and actively do it, or start journaling or drawing or using different tools to bring the pieces back together.
I got a feeling Fisher's going to be one of the first people that, Fisher, how I'm always talking about on the show, how I want to be able to astral travel with my friends and stuff. You're going to be the first one that actually cracks that. You're going to be like, hey, Rube, what's up, man? You're going to freak me out. I got a feeling. Just dive in.
Rube, I have a feeling that you and I have had a connection before here, too, as we discussed in chat before, as different, hundreds of years ago, I don't remember, mafia figures and stuff, and I've been researching things, and Francure, Latramio, and Grimaldi's have had contact with these figures back in the old countries.
Yeah, that's another thing, too, Amelia. I was going to ask you is, when it comes to past lives and stuff, do souls tend to reincarnate in the same ancestral line, like in their families and stuff?
It all depends on what. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, you're on it. Go for it.
I think it all depends on what you're supposed to work on. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that, and I don't think that it has anything necessarily to do with your ancestral lines. It can or can't. Like if, in my case, I chose some heavy opposition to come into this time. So there's only, in my lineage right now, there's only 2 of us as light workers in a very long lineage of darkness.
Don says in the speaker chat, someone needs to knock Roop out of his tree. How does Don know that I always hang out in the trees when oh, that's probably because I talk about it. Yeah, someone does need to knock me out of the tree. Go ahead, Fisher. I'm sorry, brother.
Roop, you have a lot of talent spiritually and stuff, and you and I resonate. We have a combo that not many people have. We're both interested in technical stuff, but we're spiritual too.
Yep, you got that
nice
right.
package. A nice package.
It's a nice package. That's right, brother.
Yes. And we're 2 of a kind.
Damn right. And thanks for calling in, man. I appreciate that.
Have a good night, Roop, and enjoy the rest of the show.
You too, brother. Thanks for calling.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. BTO's got one hell of a question for you, and I have to ask it, Amelia. Did you see it?
Okay. No.
Here it is. And this probably is going to go right along. I think BTO is picking up what this whole show is about. Could be wrong, but Beyond the Omniverse asks in the Spreaker chat, I need a drum roll for this one. He says, I've reintegrated all aspects, galaxies, solar systems, planets, life forms of myself scattered throughout this universe, as well as my own universe within this multiverse. My question for Amelia is, has Amelia reintegrated aspects of herself throughout the galaxies within this universe, and has she reconnected with her own universe outside of this universe? Thank you. BTO, I think you just broke the internet.
I'm still playing in this universe. I've traveled outside, but in terms of waking up to my placement of what my soul's here to do, I'm working in this universe.
Well, speaking of, I'm going to ask you a real quick question. Then if I do have an out-of-body experience or anything like that, I find myself just playing around, like flying and, going up in trees and stuff. But I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something. And actually, Israel Regardie wrote a book about that called The Tree of Life, where he really didn't like the fact that when people finally understood how to get into these realms spiritually, that they would just play around and that they wouldn't do their purpose. I'm wondering what you think about that.
Well, I think a lot of people get, drunk with power and sort of trip off of the gifts rather than realize how to use them and what they're here to do with those gifts. And I think that's the play of darkness and the spell of darkness.
Just to get caught up in the play of it all?
Yeah. And I mean, that's, look at Aleister Crowley and a lot of other people who went into the esoteric arts. I mean, some of them just get drunk with power. Some of them lose their mind, and some of them, well-meaning, get lost and can't find their way back. So it takes a lot of dedication and clarity to stay the path. It's not for everyone. I mean, ripping off the veil too quickly is dangerous. Having a spontaneous awakening or having the truth revealed too quickly can create so much destruction, which is why the whole disclosure story. I mean, if they disclosed everything immediately, there'd be chaos, like people can't handle that much truth at once. It's like it's got to be drip fed until the capacity expands to hold that much information or that much of a reality shift.
Gotcha. 780 area code. You are on the air with Amelia. Who are we speaking with?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Oh, it's Craig.
Hi.
What's up, Craig?
Nothing, man. How about you? Just working.
Right on, man. Always the hard-working man
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah, I wanted to touch base on duality. Just get your thoughts on it. Like, what is duality, right? Duality is like you fall in love and it's bound to die or it's bound to go away because we live within a linear existence, right? And everything else, I think, is just based on perspective. Like, somebody who hurts you or bullies you is bullied by somebody else as a kid. Like, their perspective is just different than yours from the accumulated experience within this existence, right? So, like, with duality, I don't think it's as big of a deal as everybody says it is. I was just wondering if you could expand on that.
Yeah, I don't really agree with what you said. So first, love doesn't die. Love is everlasting, and it's not linear.
No, you like fall in love with somebody and then they break your heart or whatever, or they pass away. Like it's linear existence, right?
Can I raise my
So you're
hand
going
real
to have a
quick?
fear response of, yeah, go ahead.
Based on my past marriages, I can tell you right now, love does die a little bit from at least one side of the equation. But you go ahead.
Your interest might die. But go ahead. I understand what you're saying.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I just want to make sure, like, it's not like, sure, like a love for my child is never going to go away, right? Or whatever, but like, I'm going to love them and they could pass away within this linear existence, but everything else is just kind of muddied up perception without understanding other people's accumulated experience and their own perceptions, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what's
what
your
is
question?
duality besides linear existence? So why is it such a big deal for everybody? That's all I'm wondering.
Okay, so
Anyways.
I think my version of duality and love is different from what you're just speaking of. So when I say duality, I'm talking about light forces and dark forces, meaning energy that serves the light and energy that serves darkness.
Yeah, but okay, so what are those within our reality, right? So you got like an Islamist terrorist, right? And he grew up with a father who was a very strict fundamental Muslim, right? His father was killed, his mother was killed, his cousin was killed. He's taken on this cause. His whole life he's been told that like women are less than him, right? His accumulated experience has brought him to a point where he's capable of some things that nobody else is capable of, or very few people are capable of, just because of experiences. Yeah, so like it's not really that soul's fault. It's not that person's fault. If they were put into your body and had your life, they'd probably be a lot like you. You know what I'm saying? Like that's all I'm saying. Like duality is just limited perception, or being stuck in our own egoic perception, right? And then taking offense to whatever somebody else is doing instead of understanding that their accumulated experience isn't really their fault. You know what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying, but sometimes I do wonder, Craig, though, if those people, regardless of all of those things that they've been taught and that have happened to them in their lives, if there isn't some still small voice that's going, this is wrong. This doesn't feel right.
Yeah, it's who they're serving. It's the service. Like, who are they in service to? So internally, are they feeding their shadow or are they feeding their light? So the duality exists within each one of us. We each have a shadow and a light.
It's just perception.
It's not
like,
perception.
Joe, have you ever done anything mean to anybody? You know what I mean? Because you get stuck in a limited perception of egoic anger, right? So you only see what this person's done to you, or you only see what you need to do to them to pay you back for something that they've done, right? You know what I mean? So you go out of your way to hurt that person on purpose without any moral response to their hurt or their pain or anything that you're going to be doing to them. The only thing that you see is what makes it makes you feel better within yourself, right?
I think I see what you're saying, but I also see what Amelia is saying too. So,
and then love, like how is love like a base product of our universe? If it can be created, like if you're a POW in like a Korean camp back in the Second World War or something, or in Korea or whatever war. Anyways, like you're a POW in camp, and like a guy gives you an extra carrot when it's lunchtime. You know what I mean? And you fall in love with that person who's keeping you in prison, who will pull out his gun and shoot you in the head at any moment, right? So if you can fall in love by your simple perception of how they're treating you nicer than somebody else, right? Like how is love? Like how do you, like if you haven't stripped away the context of it, and of this reality, how do you know it exists? And how did you come to that conclusion?
Well, I can tell you firsthand that there's only two things that I know are real for a fact, and that's consciousness, and I don't know what the hell it is. I just know it's real, and love, based on my experience. And I've had some pretty damn crazy things happen to me in my life, and I've still heard that small voice inside of me guiding me along. Whether you're guided in a negative or positive experience, it's really about what voice you choose to listen to. And I think that's what Amelia's point is. It's not about, the right or wrong factor of it or the ego thing. It's, are you listening to the voice inside of you that's guiding you to your higher self?
Yeah, your questions are more based on interpersonal experiences versus your relationship with yourself. And
bad things happen to people, Craig. They do, all over the world. And I've talked about that guilt factor that I carry with that. And but if we come from a point of view where we have karma to work out, or we're choosing our incarnations and stuff, that could play a part in it. I don't know. That's some deep thought there, though, brother. I would say that. I will give you that. Hope I didn't lose you. You still there, Craig?
Oh, no, I'm here. I'm just trying not to start rhyming off on Mark's stuff. So thank you very much for your time, guys.
No problem.
Well, yeah, like I see love as the byproduct of consciousness, because like we perceive something and then we can love it because we become accustomed to it, right? It grows with that. Like I have some experience with love where like I can't explain it, so I understand your perception, but this is just my logical mind. So anyways, thank you very much for your time, guys.
No problem, brother. Thanks for the call. Whew, some crazy calls we're getting tonight. Action. It's fun. I love it. Thanks for the call, brother. So where was we before that? I kind of lost my train of thought because I got involved with that phone call, for real. You were traveling. That's what we were talking about. You were traveling along to these different places, and you went to England. First off, how many different countries have you visited when you went on this journey?
Oh, I don't remember on that journey. Maybe 10 or 12. I mean, total, I've lived in 5 countries. And so, yeah, I guess, to wrap back around to discovering my own nature, Japan was a country that called me very strongly. As a little girl, I had, Japanese exchange students would come and stay at our family's house in the summer. And so I was exposed to Japanese young people. But somehow when I opened the web design company, all of my clients were Japanese. It was really bizarre. I mean, I know they're the first ones to adopt technology, but we were based in San Francisco, but all our clients were headhunting us from Tokyo. And so we ended up opening an office in Tokyo, and I was kind of living between San Francisco and Japan for 5 years. And that was the beginning of me discovering a lot of past life memory of being Japanese, and where I found my spiritual teacher, who is also a physicist. And who's also Pleiadian. And the first thing that they asked me when I met them, it's a husband and wife, was, do you recognize us? And I thought they were old friends. I thought I'd met them before, specifically the woman. I hugged her like it was an old friend. And then after hugging her, I realized while I was hugging her, I said, have we met? And she said, oh, of course we've met. And I was like, my conscious mind was confused because my soul knew her very well. But consciously, I realized I had never met this woman before. And then it turned out really quickly that they were my teachers in the Pleiades. And they had conscious memory of me and were very happy to be back together with me. And they started training me in kind of developing my gifts. And so I would spend many days, weeks with them, sometimes over the years, maybe about 6 times a year, I would have private time with them to just develop my abilities and my recall. So they would meditate with me, and at the time I had never meditated before. And they said the first time we meditated, they saw a bunch of ships, and they asked me if I knew where they were from. And they were the first people I met who also interacted with ships and beings from the Pleiades. And at that point, I had thought that I had made up the name Pleiades. I didn't know it was a real star system. I was in my early 20s and hadn't really been doing any research. So it was interesting synchronicities that kept coming onto my path. I started telling a story to a friend of mine about my Pleiadian heritage, and it was kind of like some fantasy that I had concocted, but it was just channeling out of me. But at that time, I didn't know what channeling was, and they thought it was really fascinating, and they said, I think there's something to this. And then, I don't know, a few days later, another friend who had never heard that story brought me the Pleiadian Agenda from Barbara Clow, and that book really freaked me out because a lot of the stories I had been kind of spewing out about my galactic heritage, it was in the book, but she has so much more information. That book is huge. But that's when things like started to fit to, the puzzle pieces started coming together. And there's a lot of stories like that. And in my travels, and I lived in India for 8 years, and it was the same there. Different magical beings would show up at different times. One really funny situation, I was at a meditation conference I was working with a guru there, helping him develop he was establishing a school for spiritual sciences, and I was helping develop that project. And so I was there for a meeting, and I didn't realize that there were going to be thousands of meditators also joining. Right. And one young kid, she was like 7 or 8 years old. I was walking around with my headphones on because I was the only foreigner, and I didn't want to interact with the public. And she came up to me with my headphones on, and she was like, hey, you're Pleiadian, right? And I took my headset out, and I was like, wait, what did you just say? And she's like, you're Pleiadian, right? And I was like, I am. And she's like, I knew it. And she high-fived me. And things like that happen to me all over the world. And it's been interesting to be recognized and to remember and put all these, puzzle pieces back together.
I don't know who keeps calling and hanging up, but I got to let Amelia finish her sentence before I take your call. So, but yeah, so that's a synchronicity. So that's what I was going to ask you. Like, when the signs that we know we're on the right path to finding out our higher self, sometimes I say, well, we need to listen to our synchronicities, but are there other things besides just synchronicities that can happen in our lives, or things that we need to pay attention to that will let us know who we are as far as our galactic nature?
Well, I think meditation is a really important key for really asking and hearing the answers to the who am I question. You know, Ramana Maharishi was my teacher's teacher. And that whole line of self-inquiry is what took me down this path. I think synchronicity arrives in a myriad of forms, and when we have synchronicity throughout our day and it's a constant, we know that we're in the flow, like we're in sync with things, and pieces are coming together. So you said just synchronicity. I think synchronicity is kind of the key for...
Oh, I don't mean it. I'm not trying to downplay it, but I think sometimes we can look at things that like they're this big synchronistic event, and they may not really be. It may just be a coincidence sometimes. And I'm not saying, people say there's no such thing as coincidences, but I still kind of think there is coincidences on a small scale.
Well, I think that we make the meaning, right? So synchronicities happen, and what we make that synchronicity mean, it doesn't mean, so sometimes when people see a synchronicity, they think, well, it's a synchronicity, so it means this is true. But that part isn't true. So just because it's a synchronicity doesn't mean that it means yes, or it's a green light, or it means that it's a fact. It just means it's a synchronicity. It's another clue.
Apparently I'm saying whatnot too much. It's either you or me. See, these guys in the chat room, they'll come up with drinking words when we say words too much.
Yeah, I think it's getting late. I don't know if I said whatnot.
It's not you.
But,
it's not you. It's all good.
Yeah, I can't look at the chat while we're talking.
What I'm going to do one night is I'm going to have I'm going to declare a winner for the chat room, and we're just going to let you do a show, and we'll see how it works out. And we'll have our own drinking word and all that stuff. Joseph wants to know in the chat room, does she have any experience with Zen or Zen meditations, especially during her time in Japan?
A little bit. I did some Zazen, and I've done Goenkaji's Vipassana. I did a Vipassana in Japan. Vipassana is not necessarily the same as the Japanese Zen, but the line from Buddha. But it's not my style. It doesn't really work for me. I'm very active in the way that I meditate. I see a lot. So when I get quiet, it's like a TV show and movies get played, and sometimes there's multiple movies happening. And so a lot of my meditation style and the way I guide has been more of a multitasking meditation where it's a very active meditation in order to clear.
Who's on the? Let her finish her sentence, and I'll take your call. Go ahead. You finish the sentence.
Thank you.
You were talking about your multitasking meditations.
Yeah, to heal and clear obstructions. So, when you decide to sit and get quiet, for those of you who don't meditate, a lot of stuff comes to the surface. A lot of the things that you haven't been dealing with or haven't been able to look at, emotions. My meditation style is not the same as a Zen practice.
Right on. I get that. All right, 306 area code. Do you have a question for Amelia?
Well, hello, people. This is Ron calling from Canada.
What's up, Ron?
Up in the better part of Saskatchewan. I'll just say hello to all the crazy people here in the chat room on Spreaker, of course. And I'll just say, like Amelia or Amelia said,
Amelia. Mm-hmm.
finding your puzzle pieces. That was what she had said before, and that's sort of what I will just kind of comment on. That's exactly right.
So you can relate to that. Is that what you're saying?
You have to explore what's up there in front of you, and not just stare at your screen and figure that's everything, right? There's obviously way more to it. So, anyways, I just wanted to say hi to everybody and Catalina.
Right on. Sandra. Giving shout outs to the chat room. That's cool.
And Angel and all my other nut bars out there. So,
all right, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for the comment.
Love the show.
Appreciate it, brother. Yeah, so a lot of people are relating to what you're saying, Amelia. Apparently they're having a lot of the same experiences, or they're really understanding what you're saying, and I think that's cool. I find that a lot. Every time I do a show with you, I'll get that happening. Tonight's been a lot more, right now type of stuff, but usually, after I get done with the show with you, I'll get flooded with messages or emails about it. So, yeah, you must be doing something right.
Looks like they're having a party in there.
Oh, they always have a party in there.
I can't keep up. It's moving too fast.
This thing's up
I'll read it later.
Well, they try to get it to like 2,000 chats a night. That's their goal every night.
Mm-hmm.
But, so we're trying to relate all this together to find our galactic nature. So you started out with some crazy experiences as a kid. You went through these mystery schools. And what made you decide, this is the big thing here, what made you decide to do your own thing? Because a lot of people, and I'll even say myself included, I'll get caught up in a certain mystery school and they stay in that section or in that school instead of just doing their own thing. What made you decide to branch off and do your own thing?
Mm-hmm. Who was it that said they got kicked out of every school they went to?
That was Joe Monk. He said, every school I've ever went to, I've been kicked out of.
Well, I haven't been totally kicked out, but I didn't resonate with any school I ever went to, and was always a bit rebellious in the sense that at some point in my trainings, I found that there was something lacking, something missing, and for I don't know about 14 years, I was really focused on building intentional communities. That was my mission, was to magnetize the soul groups to live and work together in community, sustainable community models. So I was really focused on building sustainable models of community. And after a lot of heartbreak and kind of issues with those communities, I was told that I needed to help teach self-governance, because we don't, even in the spiritual communities I was working with, people couldn't hold the frequency of what it means to live in harmonic resonance within themselves. So therefore, if they can't do it within themselves, they cannot do it with each other. And it doesn't matter how good of a meditator they are or how much they're kind of professing to be spiritual, because I was working with some of, the world's leading spiritual thought leaders and practitioners, and they still couldn't live in harmonic resonance within a community or with the earth. And it really disturbed me. And so basically it was like, for a business term, it's like a hole in the market, right? It's like nobody's teaching how to be in harmonic resonance with the self first. And you can't see any kind of harmony outside yourself unless you first learn how to govern yourself. So we can't have consensus governance or even democracy if we don't know how to master ourself and know ourself. Right. And so I was directed from the council that I work with to teach these specific practices. And so...
Are these the ones that you put in the book, or are some things in the mystery school that you didn't put in the book?
The what's in the book is kind of the foundational practice that I think all human beings need to know. And from there, once that's established, that's when the magic opens. That's when you discover yourself. When you have that foundation, you can then activate the starseed and grow your roots. Awesome. Without that foundation, you can't learn the language of light. You can't move into a higher dimensional frequency without that foundational stance. And so it's a little frustrating for me because I feel like I keep having to teach ABC, ABC, ABC. But if people don't know the alphabet, they cannot speak the language.
Yeah, Lon Milo Duquette told me that when he was going to China to teach the Kabbalah. He said he keeps going there to do it, but he has the same issues, but he loves it. It's his calling. He has to do it, you know. Dale from the SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook is asking, do some events leave energy imprints of some sort on some things? Does this explain some paranormal activity?
Say that again?
So he's asking about energy imprints, like events. Do certain events that happen in your life, maybe synchronistic events, or when certain things are trying to communicate with you, leave energy imprints? That's what he's asking. And is this why we see so much, you know, paranormal activity where people say it's ghosts or this or that or whatever?
Yeah, I don't know if I fully understand the question, but yeah, I do think that... you know, when someone's had contact, whether it's through extraterrestrials or discarnates, yeah, there's imprints, and then that kind of opens you up to a repeating pattern or repeating communication.
Well, I was going to ask you this question too. I've actually went through 2 different mystery schools myself, one in my late 20s and one not too long ago. And what I found is that the teachings are awesome. The school, like whatever you're learning is great. It's very interesting. It's intriguing. It keeps you moving. You learn stuff. You learn how to do certain things spiritually and all that stuff. But there's always this political thing that goes on at the tops of these schools where people have certain, I guess, badges or whatever, and it just seems like there's so much infighting that it loses its luster for the whole reason why I was there. Do you know what I'm saying? And
I know exactly what you're saying. That I totally understand it. Yeah, so the way I deal with that is that you know, I am mentoring people, but I'm helping them to awaken to their unique gifts. I'm not teaching specific I'm not teaching astral travel and specific tips of psychic reading, and I've studied all that and I know how to do it, but I find it a game, a power trip game, and I don't appreciate it. So in my school, I'm there to seed people to wake up to their innate genius and to allow them to so as their genius wakes up, I help them water their genius so that they can fully master their own gifts. And they're sort of measuring themselves against their own awakening experience. And we're in a circle format, and it's a small group. Because I do not like political structures. What's that?
Well, you always keep a small group with you when you do this stuff, right? It's not like you're...
Yeah, I want a lot of hands-on with each individual. I track what each individual is doing. I'm able to see how much they're developing and how much they're grounding and anchoring and opening and flowering and all of that. So I'm really keeping a strong eye and making sure that they're staying aligned in the light. So, I've had experiences where students have, before I had my protocols fully in place, I had a student who was kind of teetering on darkness when he entered the school. And for some reason, I sort of thought that I could save him or really help him to stay in the light. And I now I see that was more of my
naiveness,
egoic need to help someone. But it was bad, and he chose to go to the dark, and I had to let him do that and watch him do that, and it was a great learning experience for the other students because we could all see it. It was very obvious to everyone, and that made me very proud of my other students who were very clear seers at the time. So, I have different protocols in place now, so that's not going to happen again.
I understand, yeah. You don't want to go through the same thing twice, for sure.
It's hard to watch. I mean, it's hard to watch people choose power over light.
Okay, good, because that's what I was going to ask you. Like, when you say darkness,
power tripping. People who get gifts and they want to use them and feel powerful.
Yeah,
instead of humanity.
There was a book that I was reading. I think it was by Ledbetter, where he was talking about that at some point, whatever powers or gifts that you've gained from all this, you had to make a choice whether you were willing to sacrifice it all. Would you sacrifice it all for the greater need of humanity or your brothers and sisters, or would you keep it? At some point, he talks about how they all had to make that decision. So there wasn't just this one time where you chose light or darkness. It was always there, like tempting you the whole time,
Yeah. It's a daily choice.
How tempting is it now? Just out of curiosity. Things get, you just want to smack people around, a little bit. Come on. I mean, you're still human.
Yeah, I put a team in place to keep me in check. That's not in the school. And I ask my students also so all my students are completely open to keep me in check. I never want them to think that they can't point out my shadow or my blind spot. I need them to, and that's why we have a circle structure.
I'm going to ask you a real deep question because we only got a few minutes left, and I feel like I need to get this question out. When people say God, right? Mm-hmm. When they say, not my will, but God's will, sometimes I wonder if that will, that God is really just source or their higher self to that source, or am I kind of going down the wrong road with that?
Yeah, well, I think, it's all connotation to the person who's using that word, what they mean by God.
Yeah, because I don't get the sense of, when I say God, I really don't get the sense of separateness. Like I used to have that feeling that like God was this being that would smack you around if you messed up or whatever, and was totally separate from you and would, you had to earn your acceptance to him, or, you weren't worthy or whatever. But now as I'm getting older, I'm understanding that if I'm not listening to God, I'm really not listening to the higher self that's in me. And
it sounds like God is your I am presence, right?
Right.
That's
and
how
every time I start to think that or feel that, I get this guilt trip, like, oh no, that's sin, that's Luciferian, yada, yada, yada. And I'm wondering if that's just my upbringing that's doing that to me,
Good thing to meditate on.
Yeah, it is a good thing to meditate on. That's something that I'll have to answer for myself.
Your I am presence is, if you're accessing the I am presence, that is the pure version of your God self.
Well, before we get out of here, can you tell everybody again about the school, and just kind of give them the details, the rundown, and how they can find you on the web?
And if anyone listening is interested to know more, please go to my website, knowtheself.com, and click on the Mystery School. There's a link to book a call with me to talk and see if it's a good fit for you. I also have a lot of free resources on my website, like the Moon blog and my video and my 11-minute meditation. And of course, you can get my book there too. So yeah, I'd love to talk to anyone who has further questions that we didn't get to answer. You can email me from my website as well.
Awesome. Thank you for sticking it out the whole 3 hours. And
yeah, it went by fast.
Yeah, that was cool. Thank you. I really appreciate it. We'll have to do it again sometime. And I had a lot of fun. Very interesting conversation. Thank you so much.
Jeff. Thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone.
That's it, man. We're going to get out of here. You guys, that was great. Thanks for the calls. Thanks for all your questions. Don't forget to check us out at spacedoutradio.com. If you're listening live on the Fringe FM, S4 is up next. Good night, everybody.
The cold wind keeps on blowing. I let it lead me astray. Looking for a path to follow.